Okay. Karen, I think you're going to you can take it away. No worries. Yeah, please, go ahead.
So next week we've got Jeff Graves coming in and talking about the coal mines that are burning in the state of Colorado and what we can and cannot do about them and what the plans are there. The week after that, Dwayne Boyle, who's the lead architect at the United States Air Force Academy, going to report on what's going on with the chapel down there and the history of the chapel and some new news of what's happening with the renovation down there. And I've got some information next week I'll bring to you on I think it's going to be kind of a unique program. So, Karen?
Trying to keep my phone up here so I know if I'm running out of time. Because I kind of go on and on sometimes. No. Actually, my Craig is with me today as well. He may chime in. So this was a trip that we took last November. Jay Fagel, who's in the gold shirt from the Breakfast Club, and his wife Val, all of us used to live on the same cul-de-sac. Jay and Val moved to Windsor, shame on them. But the rest of us are still there. We've lived together in that cul-de-sac I've been there since 1990. And everybody else has been there at least 25 years or longer. So we've been long-term neighbors and friends. It's also kind of known as Rotary Calendar Court because all of us had a connection to Rotary, or have a connection to Rotary. So, but Jay and Val's daughter, Emily, lived in Dubai since she graduated from college, worked for Siemens Corp, and they generously said, we'd love to have the whole neighborhood come and see Dubai and experience it because it's really a wonderful place. So we all went to Dubai last November. Go ahead, Craig. Oops, wait a minute. Got my notes. Nope, that's not the next slide. Back. There, now, oops, forward. All right. So this is a map of where I thought it would be nice to give you a little bit of background other than just to show you our pictures. It was really fun to learn a little bit more about this part of the country. I will admit that I probably had some preconceived notions about the Middle East and visiting the Middle East. But I have to tell you, they were incredibly open. They were really welcoming. We happened to also go at the same time of the World's Fair, which had been delayed a year because of COVID. So the United Arab Emirates is really trying to become a much more modern country. And we had a great experience there. Never felt like we were infidels. I only had one instance where I accidentally touched someone's stroller in an elevator, and they were obviously offended, never said a word to me, but you could tell from their face that, they were offended by that. But that was my only instance of really experiencing that. So as the UAE is a small country. It's actually a confederation of 7 contiguous emirates or tribes. They all got together and formed one country because the bulk of the wealth is in, and the size of Abu Dhabi is the biggest. That the leader of Abu Dhabi is the president of the country, or has been since its formation. And the leader of Dubai is the prime minister. So that just gives you a sense of that. It does sit on the Persian Gulf. It is bordered by Saudi Arabia and Oman, as you can see. The other thing that's really interesting is you can see here is Oman. See that little orange thing? That's Oman, and that's Oman. That was kind of an interesting thing to see. It's about, on this map it looks farther, but it's only about 60 miles, like going from here to Denver, between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. It is approximately slightly smaller than the state of Maine, so that gives you a sense of its size geographically. It is a constitutional monarchy. Some people refer to it as a benevolent dictatorship. While we were there, we learned there's very little homelessness. It did take a spike during COVID because companies had to shut down. Workers were left stranded there, and there wasn't housing, continued housing for them. But I think they've gotten that back under control because we never saw any of that anywhere that we went in Dubai. This tells you a little bit about their life expectancy. Their religions are primarily Muslim, but they also have Christianity and Hindu. They have a large Indian population that works there. Their population is now closer to 9.9 million. Probably 86% of those people are expats, or people from other countries. Only about 15% of the people in the UAE are Emirates and natives. So I won't read the whole slide to you, but that just gives you a little bit of overview. So this was our first night in Abu Dhabi. Other people, when I was looking at going there, people who had been there said it's like Las Vegas on steroids, but without the gambling. However, they have built islands, and in fact, we stayed in the Blue Islands area. It's an island that's been built up out of the sea with sand and coral. It's technically not part of the UAE because it's offshore. And Caesars has built a hotel there, and I'm told one of the things that they talked about is at some point there will be a casino at Caesars, and that's how they're going to get around the Muslim law for gambling. So they have an eye there. It's the largest in the world. Later, I have a picture my son took from when he went up in it in the thing. But as you can see, it's very colorful. Lots of neon everywhere, even when you drive down the streets. And the billboards make our billboards look like laptops. Excellent. So as I said, we also had the opportunity to go to the World Expo. Yes, there are still World Fairs that are held every 4 years. They're now called the World Expos. These are just some pictures from some of the pavilions and some of the exhibits. They really, honestly, don't do justice to being there, to seeing the technology that was there. The theme of it was sustainability, growth, and conservation. So that was the theme of the expo this year. And a lot of the pavilions and the countries then had exhibits that showed what they were doing in those areas. So that's compliments of Craig. And then this is a video of one of the pavilions that we went into in the evening. After you've walked around all day, you're pretty tired, but this was probably one of the most relaxing experiences I've ever had in my life, was sitting in this pavilion. This is my video. I am not quite as good as
وهي تسمع حكايات ويسهرها بروايات، ولما الليل يتسلل هدوء وذاكرة خصبة.
So the size of this pavilion was equivalent to about a 5 to 6 story building, would you say, Craig? Yeah, 2 times Mobile Arena almost. Yeah. So, okay. So that was our first day. Was we went to the expo. The next day we went from what most people consider new Dubai, which probably 10 years ago, much of it didn't exist. But we went from new Dubai to old Dubai. And these were can you hear me? These were some of the photos that we took along the way. I just thought the bridge was kind of a unique structure. This is a mosque in Dubai. This is the Burj Al Arab. It is a 7-star hotel. The room rates go for as high as $24,000 a night. They have a restaurant. Pardon? No. We could, yeah. But and the hotel, my son was really impressed with this, being a chef and managing a restaurant. Their menu is on gold-plated iPads. So it's pretty, we did not go in there, but it's really quite a structure, even from a distance. This is the Atlantis in Dubai, and this is the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building in the world. And I'll just talk a little bit more about that. And this was just as we were leaving the marina. What I wanted you to see was some of the newer architecture there. Next one. And in contrast to old Dubai. Again, these photos are compliments of Craig. Again, this is just a local mosque in old Dubai. We went to what's called the old souk. The souk is the Arab word for marketplace. So and they had little alleys within the souk for just about anything you could think of to want to buy. This one happened to be a utensil souk. Next one. We took a water taxi from where we came in on the marina over to the souk. So this just shows you some of the dhows and things that were used for water taxis. Again, this photo is just a contrast of the architecture from new Dubai to old Dubai. In the upper left, I think what was interesting to me about this was all the electronics on top of this old building. And then the spice souk. The spice souks were just, aside from being so aromatic, they were just beautiful to look at. This is Craig in the background. And this young man you might think is a local, but it's my son. One of the vendors came out and dressed him in local garb. Of course, they wanted him to buy it. He did not, but I couldn't resist. So in our house now, he's Sheikh Christopher. Then they also had a souk that was probably equivalent to 2 blocks long of nothing but jewelry and gold and silver, mostly gold. These are just a few snapshots of windows that I snapped. So, I mean, I don't think I got in here, but you can see you can buy gold dresses, you can buy gold plates. In some of the more wealthier families, those gold plates like this are what the groom wears when they get married. So, very interesting. In Dubai, they had the Dubai frame. I believe they have these in other countries. This one in Dubai is the largest in the world. Everything in Dubai and in the UAE is the largest and biggest in the world, if you haven't caught on to that. They really have gone out of their way to really be able to claim that. I didn't get any pictures that we took from the frame. The frame is placed really in a very specific place to divide between Old Dubai and New Dubai. So unfortunately, I couldn't find any pictures that we took from here of Old Dubai from the frame. It's just an architectural phenomenon that they built. It is the frame itself. We were actually, as you can see here, we were actually up in this area. So you take an elevator up, and then all of these pictures here were taken from the top of the frame. And you can, this is a glass right here. And so you stand on top of the glass and then you can look down as well. So, yeah. No, and then this is just, yeah. Yeah. So I put these in because I was fascinated by this. The next day after we went to Old Dubai, we went to Abu Dhabi. We drove from Dubai to Abu Dhabi. As I said, it's about an hour drive. What's very interesting is there weren't potholes in the road. The roads were extremely well maintained, and the right lane is for trucks only. And in fact, if you're a truck and you're not in the right lane, you get a horrendous ticket. So it's interesting, the only traffic jam there appeared to be between Dubai and Abu Dhabi was in that right lane because of all the trucks that were hauling back and forth. But this was interesting to me because about halfway between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, there are these food truck parks for people to stop and eat and get refreshments. We happened to get there in the morning, and not many of them were open. On the side of the road, as we were going to Abu Dhabi, it had this whole Mad Max theme. And so everybody, as you can see, everybody who had a truck or any kind of business there had something that was in the Mad Max theme. Even when you went to the bathrooms, it was really, really amazing, the amount of money they had invested in this. But I just thought this was unique. Of course, we had to do our Starbucks stop. So this is the skyline of Abu Dhabi, a bit more conservative than what we saw in Dubai. We weren't at this part of the city in the evening, so I don't know how well they're lit. But it is a much more conservative city than Dubai, and we were advised to dress far more conservatively than we did in Abu Dhabi than we did in Dubai. And part of that was because of some of the things that we visited here, but also. So this is this is the working palace for the Sheikh. Let me get to my notes here. It is called I hope I'm going to get this right, the Qasr Al Watan. It's a working presidential palace. It was completed in 2017 and opened to the public in 2019. Then it closed for COVID, and then it opened again, I think just a couple weeks before we got there. Aside from when we were taking pictures, the other thing I would say is while we were there, we had to wear masks the entire time. If you were in public and you didn't have a mask and a security guard came, they came up to you and made sure that you put your mask on. And we also had to show proof of vaccination to get into the palace and the mosque, and in several places throughout Dubai. This is the entryway into the palace. This was our impromptu Rotary makeup meeting in the palace. I think I sent something while I was there. And, you know, we were a multi-club makeup meeting because, as you can see, Jay, who's a member of the Breakfast Club, was also with us. And then this was a mirrored kaleidoscope type of effect that they had in the palace. That there were so many amazing architectural features. I couldn't find any information about how much it cost to build this. I remember somebody telling me, but it slipped my mind now. Yeah. well, especially when I tell you what it costs to build the Grand Mosque. But as you can see, it's quite elaborate, has a lot of great features. This is entirely made of gold, this structure, and I think it's called a friendship, as I recall, a friendship cake. I don't remember the exact word. That's Veronica and Craig in there. That was just an example of some of the chandeliers that were in there, and some of the other architectural pieces. This is the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi. It's the mosque for the country. It was constructed between 1994 and 2007. It measures approximately, the building complex covers more than 12 hectares or 30 acres, excluding the exterior landscaping and parking. The main axis of the building is specifically rotated 12 degrees south of true west, aligning it in the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca. It cost $2 billion to build. Can you go back to that previous slide? So this piece I put up here because as we went into the mosque where we signed up to be able to go into it, it was free to go in. I was just really taken by the whole, that they had a visitor's happiness desk. I wish we had more visitors' happiness desks in the U.S. I thought that was great. These are pictures of the mosque. If you see these pillars, they were throughout the mosque. They were incredible. Again, it cost $2 billion to build this. And they had incredible marble plazas and pavilions. But if you see these poles, this over here, essentially, it's not just beautiful inserted, painted on. Those are crushed jewels embedded in that marble. And they are everywhere throughout. I'm showing, oh, can you go back? I'm sorry. This picture I put in just because if you can see, my son and I are holding our hands. So our first photo, we had our arms around each other, and a security guard noticed and came over and made us stand like that because we were not allowed to, men and women were not allowed to touch in public. Even if we were mother and son. Again, some of the architecture. I snapped this photo because I looked up and there were two pigeons, and I thought, oh, even the pigeons come to prayer. And these were nighttime photos of the mosque. Just a beautiful structure, beautiful design. The next day, we went to the desert, and we did this activity. Although this was not one of our cars, it was one of the photos, but I think it shows a good job of what dune bashing was. It was like being on a sand roller coaster. We stopped before we went into the desert so they could let out the air in the tires so that they would have better traction in the sand. It was really quite an interesting process. This photo was snapped by Craig of some of the desert. I just thought that was a great formation. And our tour guides, in addition to being great drivers and really providing great information about the country, we're also incredible photographers, as you can see. So this was just one of the photos. They actually snapped individuals of us where it looked like we were holding the sun, but it was really fun. After we did the desert bashing, they took us to a Bedouin camp. They had falconry there. They also had, you could do henna tattoos. They had baby camels. We also got to go on camel rides. This was after I think we had finished our Bedouin dinner. And then they had some great entertainment in the way of local dancing, and then the fire. And he actually ate the fire. I didn't get a good picture of that, but it was pretty incredible show and experience. So Jackie and Scott and Craig and Veronica did a field trip to try and go to Oman one day. It went a little bit awry, but these are photos of Oman in the distance from the boat that they took.
It was a nice boat trip up the Persian coast, but yeah, looking on the right, that is the country of Oman there. Political stuff going on between the countries, so they have patrol boats along the border constantly. And we were told if we crossed over there, they'd shoot us. We opted not to.
But if you go back to that map where you saw the little piece of Oman in the middle, Scott was just fire bent on getting to see Oman. So he actually, Emily's fiance had a car, and he drove the car into that little circle of Oman which he could get into within Dubai, to say that he got to go to Oman. So. This was our day to visit the Burj Khalifa. This was a photo that I snapped from the plaza. Over here is parts of, and at the base of it is the the Dubai Mall. Again, the largest mall in the world. It was amazing. I don't know why I was so surprised, but it was incredible the number of, it was like walking in Mall of Americas in terms of the types of stores and things that were in there. Mostly brands and American stores that you would see in any mall here. They also had a giant aquarium in the mall. I didn't get a picture of that. It was beautiful. And then for dinner that night, we went to a Lebanese restaurant, I think it was. And it was at the base of, actually it was probably right in there. And we got to see the fountains that evening. Again, they have huge fountains like they have at Bellagio. Again, making the Bellagio fountains look like child's play. And then they had these light shows on the side of the Burj. You know, a little bit about the Burj Khalifa, which I thought you might find interesting. It is a height of 2,716.5 feet, so that's almost half a mile high. In terms of the building, it's got 160 stories. It is the tallest building in the world currently. I think there's another building currently being built that by 2024 is supposed to be even taller. Pardon? Yeah, I'm sure it will. It does hold the world's record for the highest number of floors, the highest occupied floor, the tallest freestanding structure, highest outdoor observation deck, and an elevator with the longest distance and tallest service elevator. It cost $1.5 billion to build. It is comparatively, Empire State Building is 1,250 feet tall. So it's about twice the height of the Empire State Building. So I thought those might be some things you'd be interested to know about it. We got up to the 124th and 125th floor. The more money that you paid, the higher you could go. We decided that was high enough for us. This was, pardon? Yeah, 145th was the highest you could pay to go. Yeah. So these again are some, can you go back to that previous one? Or in the previous to that even. Yeah, so you can see some of the things, some of the very tall buildings that we were looking at that were below us. It was also really interesting that days when we were up there, because there was a helicopter flying around the city. It was lower than we were. And the other thing I wanted to point out is you'll see in a number of the buildings this word Emaar. There's 3 construction companies that do building in Dubai. They're all owned by the royal family. This particular company is named after the Sheikh's favorite camel. Camel racing is a big thing in Dubai, so I thought that was kind of humorous. And then, yeah. Sorry. So that was our goodbye sunset for my son and I the day we left. We all departed a little bit differently. This picture over here was the picture my son took from the top of the eye. So again, it gives you a sense of the height of it. This was a view from our condo where we stayed. So it was a beautiful trip. Last one. We hosted an exchange student from near Halifax, England, when my daughter was 3 years old. And James here was our exchange student. At the time was 18 years old. We had seen him several times since, went back to London for his wedding, but he's just turned 50 and he now lives in Dubai with his family. We got a chance to visit with them while we were there. This is his family. He married Alero, who's who's a physician and an endocrinologist who works in Dubai, or actually she works in Abu Dhabi, they live in Dubai, and then their 2 sons. So it was also a great sort of tie up to my whole Rotary experience as well, and great to reunite with him. I think that's the end of the photos. So anybody have any questions? Happy.
Get there and back. What route?
We all took different routes. Craig, what did you guys do?
So we flew to the Maldives through New York, Dubai to the Maldives, and then back to Dubai. And then we went Dubai, Seattle, Denver on the way back. Dubai, Seattle is a 14.5-hour flight.
Yeah, we did British Airways. We went from Denver to London, which was 9 hours, and then changed planes in London in 7 hours to Dubai. And we did the same route coming back.
What were you told to do or not to do while you were there?
So you don't speak, you never criticize the government. If you do, I mean, honestly, when we were on the balconies and we were talking about them, we were constantly cautioned to speak quietly if we were going to say anything that was controversial, because of course we didn't want that to reflect on Val and Jay's daughter and fiance, because they would kick them out of the country. And you know, their human rights record is not very good with some of the folks who do that, because people do disappear, and they until recently did stoning. I think they've now outlawed that. But the other things we were told was to make sure as women, our shoulders were always covered and our knees were always covered. You know, in Dubai, maybe because of the World's Fair, that really ended up not being the case. There were a lot of people wearing shorts and sleeveless tops. But when you went in things like mosques or the palace, you had to be covered. And in fact, I had a long dress on the day we went to the mosque, but because it had a little slit up to my knee, and because my shoulders were covered, but not all the way down to my arms, I had to buy an abaya in order to go into the mosque.
What kind of food did you have?
You know, because we were in a condo, we ate in the condo a lot. But we mostly ate Mediterranean food, Lebanese food, we had Indian food, Turkish food. So, yeah, mostly Mediterranean. Even the night of the Bedouin dinner out in the desert, I would really just classify it as Mediterranean food. I do think they had Americanized it a little bit for a lot of the tourists. But, yeah, mostly Mediterranean type of food. Very, very flavorful. Yes. Any other questions? Denise?
Of course, I'm going to ask this. Alcohol?
So we were advised when we got there, yes, we could drink alcohol. Even in, you could get certain restaurants, not all, but certain restaurants, you could get alcohol. Most of the time, if they served alcohol, they had a 2-level restaurant and they were on the second floor. But a lot of, what was it called? Shisha? Yeah, shisha. So a lot of hookahs. You could smoke hookahs till the cows came home, filled with flavored tobaccos and things like that. But alcohol, yes, there were liquor stores that we could go to. I think we made one run, but most of our alcohol we bought duty free when we came into the country. That's what we were advised to do, is to try and buy as much as possible from customs, or when you came in through the airport. That was the most economical. But yes, there were many places, and even in the World's Fair, they served alcohol in some of the venues. We did eat, some of us ate African food there, which was amazing, at the World's Fair as well. There was incredible cuisine there too. So yes, we consumed our fair share of wine and beer and other adult beverages.
Are they encouraging tourism there? And what would, say you wanted to go there for a week, what would that cost you? Minus airfare.
Well, our housing was paid for because Val and Jay were really generous. When I looked online, I would say you could expect anywhere around $200 to $300 a night for a nice place. You could pay a lot more, but you could stay at a nice place and expect to spend $200 to $300 a night. Meals, I didn't think were that outrageous. The cost for meals and food, pardon? Yeah, very comparable to here. So it was, and airfare, it just depends upon whether you wanted legroom or not. We splurged a little bit, and we spent about $1,900 a person on airfare.
Thank you, Karen.
Pardon? The tours? Let's see. The ferries were about $40 a person. When we went up in the Burj Khalifa, it was about $40. I'd say just about every place we went. Going into the Grand Mosque was free. I think the palace was maybe about $40, so that seemed to be the magic number, 40 American dollars. The currency there is dirham, and it was about a 3-to-1 exchange, I think, at the time. Oh, the elevator cost to go up to the Burj Khalifa, that was $40 for us to get to the 124th floor, a person. Is that right? Yeah. So it's really, they really are trying to attract tourists. They're really trying to diversify from the oil. They're 6th and 7th in the country in terms of oil reserves and national gas reserves. And they really are trying to diversify from that. They've invested an incredible amount of money in making Dubai a destination spot for tourists. Yeah, everybody will laugh who went with me on the trip, because I whined because the humidity was much higher than it had been for a while. Although they said the weather was better that week than it was the prior week, but it was in the mid to high 90s most of the time that we were there. Pretty humid. I developed very humid for being a desert. I developed a significant heat rash by the end of the trip. It took a few days to heal when I got home, but it was worth it. Anything else? Thank you.